Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV, episode 739. We're here on this hot August night, afternoon, and we have a special guest. First, you got your host here. I'm DanK, and we have Shawn Flury. We've been talking about him coming, and here he is in the flesh. Shawn Flury is I like to say that he was a medical marijuana grower before it was legal.
That's
true. And then it got caught. And he's a genuine POW, and this guy has got the biggest heart for medical patients you'll ever see. Tell us about your Oregon Green Fee, for instance. We'll talk more about that later, but...
Oregon Green Cross?
Oregon Green Cross, yes.
Well, Oregon Green Cross was a dream that I had, and I had been a part of several other groups, Stormy Ray Foundation as the grow master. No political affiliation. That's why I ended up quitting, because I didn't agree with her concept of legalization. And I was the first director of Mercy Center in Salem. Left there under some political difficulties with a couple other guys. And then I created Oregon Green Cross. And this time I wanted it my way. And my way was going to be for the patients. I believe that there was all these other groups, including Normal, you name the groups. Everybody was really pretty much after money. You remember the day, Dan. You'd sign up. These guys would take $100, $150 every month for you, and in 3 months you would start getting your medicine. I had a whole different concept. My concept was, you sign my contract and you get 2 ounces right then and there. You get 30 marijuana cookies, edibles, and an eighth of hash if those are all available, which most of the time they should have been. That depends on how good the organization could run, efficient-wise. I did that slowly but surely. That was our model, our motto for our greenhouse, which was back then was the key to this whole concept. Was I'd been turned on to what they call light dep now. Back then it wasn't light dep. We called it forcing. It was really invented out of Silverton by an old orchardist, and I mean old, even older than you, DanK.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, we could produce basically twice as much poundage per square foot in an 8 to 9 month period than pretty much anybody at the time. Nobody was doing that. And we were pumping out lots of poundage. And so I had figured out that I could give away pretty much most of that marijuana. When we started, our group was number 55 in the state. We were the smallest group in the state. All I had was a bunch of volunteers, had people like Maria Rosen, who was the secretary, Javon Parsons, who was the accountant, pretty much my friends and family. Wherever you could fit in, you fit in. And everyone believed in it, and so we charged along, and within 6 months we were the biggest medical group in the state. And well, lo and behold, I got a wild hair up and figured, Dan, that I was going to be political. And a country boy from Roseburg kind of overbit my experience level. Didn't realize that even in the movement there'd be enemies, and there were plenty. You know as well as I do.
Oh man, I got a lot of them myself.
Yeah. And so you would think that a guy that's coming in and saying, hey, you know, I want to take care of the patients that you don't take care of because they don't have any money. And there were groups that actually turned me down and would not help their indigent list. And see, what it was every group back then had 2 lists. You had a donor list and you had an indigent list. And that indigent list was, they got the leftovers. They came to the parties, and basically anything that was sitting over there at the side, because back then how you generated money was you'd have your get-together parties. You'd give them an eighth of hash or whatever. They'd come in, they'd donate $20 to the kiddie pool. And, That's how organizations were ran back then. so it always come down to the money. And my whole thing was that we had to find a way to get indigent patients. And you got to remember that the medical law back then was paid for by Soros. Soros, and this is not a myth, this is true, had came in and helped Voter Power do a big old list. And that list showed that 70% of Oregonians, if this law went through, were indigent. That would be able to be on medical marijuana. 70% of them were indigent. So who was going to take care of those people? We were, and that was my job. So.
Yep, there's a lot of need out there. It always was, and it was still kind of pseudo-legal, so it was kind of an interesting place to be. But patients took care of themselves because at least with the medical law, you could be legal to possess. So then you could go ahead and there wasn't so much government control, but the government got in and made up. In fact, I was watching 60 Minutes. By the way, did you happen to watch 60 Minutes last night?
I would.
They had an episode. They had a talk about California and the marijuana market down there. How everybody's pissed off.
60 Minutes came in and did a show when I was working for Flocana down there in Redwood Valley. But I was all masked up there, so you probably wouldn't have knew who I was either. But they came in and shot a couple days on the segment. But, you know.
Well, down there they've over-regulated it. They've over-regulated it. Now everybody's hurting, and the black market is flourishing. And the whole idea of legalization was to devastate the black market. But the government charged so much money in taxes and fees and jacking all the growers around to where they took the money out. You know, they're just sucking the money out of it. So then they got to raise the prices, and that's why I remember in Colorado when they went legal. One of the first things I heard was the medicine cost more in a state store than it did on the black market.
And it's still that way.
Yeah.
You can. I just moved back up 3 months ago from California.
And they're both flourishing.
Yes. No. Yeah. Well, the big guy's getting bigger down there, and the little guy's being squeezed out. Pretty much your small farmer is going extinct, and you know the thing is that people are still being prosecuted. Properties are still being seized, you know, and that's kind of where I headed down the road. Was after we got established as a medical group, I turned to the politics end of it because when I got busted, and that's what got me into medical marijuana, was through the Stormy Ray Foundation. Was once I got busted, I'd never been in trouble before, and I wasn't a grandpa at that time, but eventually they went after me so hard, I could not believe it, that I thought, man, someone's got to fight for this because this is wrong. They can't do this to my children, and I wasn't going to allow that. And that's when I entered into the politics end of it, and that was the beginning of the end for me and Oregon Green Cross. Was then they targeted me, prosecuted me, came after me, paper whipped me. Of course, back then, Department of Human Services ran the program, and that was a federal plant setup all the way. The feds had been in on top of that. We tried to, in my second trial, we tried to subpoena the head of Department of Human Services, the second largest organization in the state of Oregon, and she disappeared off the face of the earth. Broke a subpoena. An employee of the state government. Can you believe that? But it was obvious, and we all knew that she had been feeding information to the feds and to certain local law enforcement. There are certain counties back then that would go after you no matter what you did. Some of your Polk County, Clackamas County, Douglas County, certain counties. Lane County never messed with most of us too bad, but some of the counties around here, Lynn County with Condi, those stories could go on and on about what they did. But the government get involved in this. We're, just like I said, the last time I spoke publicly in 2009 at the federal courthouse was, if this continues, they're going to destroy the whole thing because they don't know what they're doing. They have no clue, and they're not asking for any information from people that do know what they're doing. So here we're stuck with this again. Government overreach. Yeah,
and in fact, ever since the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program started, the Oregon government, legislature, the state government, and governor on down have been trying to destroy the program, screw the patients the whole time. They've been screwing the patients. When I started out, they said that they figured there's going to be X amount of patients, and it's going to cost X amount of dollars to do the programs. They divided one to the other, and they decided that it was going to be, I think it was $50 a year.
Yeah.
And so that's what they started out. Well, then they kept inching it up, and then they ended up, and I don't remember the year, but
they gave it all away, if I remember right.
Yes, they
to
had
the
a
general
surplus.
fund.
Yes, yes, they had over $1 million surplus, and so they just moved the money over to the general
And
fund.
all the activists back
Instead
then,
of-
we begged them to bring in indigent patients. Take that money and buy cards for people, please. And
Yeah.
they didn't listen to any of us.
Help the patients.
Yes.
The money should go back to patients.
Yes.
But no, they took it, you know, and that's
Truth.
just been their attitude, and ever since. And that's why to this day, I'm not a big fan of Governor Brown. But I tell people, just like Biden, hold your nose and vote, because
It can be worse.
The alternative is by far worse.
There's
So you've got to
worse
hold your
people.
nose and vote. That's just the way I did for Governor Brown. I'll do the same with Biden. And by the way, I want to mention that real quick. Biden and Trump. I just read here a while ago, that it's definite. Trump and Biden both are not pro-legalization on the federal level.
it's true. It's true.
So, I knew
Democrats aren't your friends either.
I knew Biden wasn't going for it because earlier he said that he says it still might be a gateway drug.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's on the ship. So, but at the same time, I'm not going to vote for Trump because I don't like Biden. So, like I said, you got to hold your nose.
Well,
and vote for Biden.
You can have civil discourse, or you can have civil war, and that's your two choices. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
We can all argue left, right, and center all we want, but you know, the truth is if we go 4 more years of this, there's going to be probably some ugly in the streets, and nobody wants that.
But anyway, back to medical marijuana. There is still a medical program, but it's nothing like it used to be, and unfortunate, it really is. But there are caring people out there, and Facebook, as bad as it is, it's still a fairly good resource for things, and that one of them is getting into groups of people that are patients. There's groups out there of patients, medical marijuana patients, and so like anything else, there's good and bad everywhere, but that's a good way to go.
Well, I've honestly thought, Dan, of maybe trying to restart another Oregon Green Cross. Oregon Green Cross 2.0, this time a little smarter, older, and wiser. Mm-hmm. I don't know. The last one cost me everything, my freedom, all my money, everything I owned in this world pretty much. So I don't know if that's really what I want to do, but I sure would like to see some power come back to the people, because there seems to be no voice out there anymore. Like we used to have a pretty strong voice.
Careful, you're getting my hopes up. You're getting my hopes up again. We're getting into this first segment, and Jimbo's got some wants to talk to Shawn. So we're going to get out of here and let Jim come in and beat on you for a while.
Good.
But,
I look forward to it.
I appreciate you coming in, and like I said, Shawn's been a friend for many years. One time he spoke at Saturday Market, and I said, Shawn, when you speak, I feel like crying. And Shawn said, yeah, I do too.
That's why I'm doing it.
So that's where it's coming from, is the heart, and this guy's got the biggest heart, I'm telling you. So I'm so glad that he's finally here, and he's back in the area, so he'll be on again. No doubt, no problem there.
Looking for land so I can help more people.
There you go. Okay.
This is Jimbo. Here is show 779.
739.
739, I'm ahead of myself. It's my turn to ask some questions of Shawn Flury. Shawn.
Yes, sir.
About how long have you been growing in the movement?
In the movement or
Yeah,
growing?
Growing, yes.
I poked my first seeds in the ground in Roseburg, Oregon, in 10 Mile, Oregon, and when I was 12 years old.
Really?
And of course, I grew a lot of nothing. And I did that. I was really good at growing nothing for many, many years. I was the king of growing nothing. God, I tried though. And then one time an old logging dude told me, and he was a cutter for my family. And I knew there had to be a secret, and I couldn't figure it out. And he said, a cup of lime, boy, a cup of lime. Dig you a hole about 6 feet, 3-4 feet deep, and throw a cup of lime in it. And by God, from that day on, I could grow. And slowly but surely, then the real change in my life came in about 81, right here in Eugene, Oregon. And I was living in this house, and right next to me was a guy. And I ended up meeting this dude, and he was from California, and his friends and him had all come up here and had been growing guerrilla out in the brush. I was a young boy, and boy, that's nothing more than I wanted to ever do, because that's all I ever tried to do. And being an ex-logger and firefighter, I knew some good spots. So I showed them, and they had this special seed. It was cannabis indicus, and no one had ever heard of anything back then like that. And so I got in with these guys, and pretty soon it changed the whole world when we were able to crossbreed the indica and the sativa back and forth together. And that changed everything here in Oregon. After that, the whole thing took off. So seriously and hard, and a professional from 81 on.
How many plants could you grow at a time?
Outdoors, up in the mountains, we would grow a patch of between 50 and 99 everywhere, and sometimes we'd have 4 and 5 patches. My best growing of all was always in a greenhouse, though, and I would only grow 99 plants for legality reasons inside the greenhouse, but I could do that twice in a cycle, and I could average 1.5 pounds back then, depending on the variety. Some were bigger, some were smaller, but that was 1 month of veg, 2 months of finish, boom, in, out.
Sounds like quite a lot of weed.
I used to tell people, dump truck loads. Dump truck loads. And it is very overwhelming, and especially for people that have never ever seen it. Like most people that when they'd come into my group were a part of me, you know, my girlfriends, my friends, anybody, they would just go, oh my God. And I'd say, don't look at the top. Start at the bottom and work your way to the finish. And I think I might have been one of the first guys in Oregon that actually brought in my sister and one of my exes and all their girlfriends to hire trim crews. And we used to hire 10, 20 girls for 3-4 weeks at a time.
Okay, where would you find trimmers back then?
Family and friends.
Family and friends.
Yeah, just like partners, people you knew and trust.
And how many people did you have working? What was your largest trimming operation?
Probably 20 people.
20 people trimming away?
Yep, yep. I mean, if you really have poundage, you want to get it done as quick as possible, and 10 people is, you know, that'd be an average crew, 8 to 10.
And
but on occasion, we'd get 15, 20. You know.
And these are Oregon grows. Did you ever grow in Northern California?
Oh yeah.
What was it like there?
I've lived in Northern California for the last 10 years, and I grew some of the very finest marijuana I've ever grown in my life there. High elevation, very dry climate. My last grow outdoor last year was at 1,550 feet with an average humidity of 10%. So,
now, what is the political situation? Is it better in California, Oregon, and how has it changed over the years?
Boy, I don't know. It's everybody seems to have their own bent on it. It's kind of like this COVID thing with state rights and counties. Down there, the counties are just like here. Every sheriff looks at it differently. In Mendocino County, you can grow recreational 25 marijuana plants. If you try to grow 25 in Lake County, you'll have code enforcement and the sheriff's department at your door. They fly drones now. They come right over even the city, you know, the unincorporated and incorporated areas, and they search them out, and they'll come knocking on your door. And
I hadn't thought about that.
They give you 1 week to get rid of them, or you yank, or they'll yank them with code enforcement, and they charge you something like $1,500 an hour.
Helicopters are bad enough. Now they have drones.
Now they have drones.
Oh.
Yeah. So fun, but no, it's always the game. You know, that's half the fun of it. You should never expect more than 90% out of anything, because if you put 100% in growing, you should expect 90% back. You'll never get that 100. because some years you'll lose, some years you'll get. I dealt with russet mites 4 or 5 years ago when I was running a co-op down there.
How about fungus?
No funguses
All
in
right.
that region, but the russet mites had come down, and that was devastating because there's no cure for them and there's no answer. And once you get them, I got them the first year I was in country fair, and the girl that was watching my farm called me up and was almost bawling and saying 7 or 10 of my plants were looking like they were dying, and it sounded like they were being underwatered or overwatered, limpy. So I said, put them on a dry diet. Next day she called, she said nothing. I said, put them back to a wet diet. A couple days later she calls me up, nothing. Turned around, when I got home, I realized that I didn't know what was going on. I went to a guy that has a doctorate degree that was one of my buddies down there from Humboldt State University, and he came out and looked and said, well, son, you got russet mites. And I just couldn't believe it. Russet mites are devastating. They're like nothing we've ever encountered before. They've come from the north, Oregon, down into California. They started off in Washington, supposedly, and they're devastating. And there's just, by the time you realize what's going on, you're yanking 8 and 10 foot plants.
Whoa.
Plants that have 5 and 10 pounds on them. You're yanking them
That's
out of the ground because that's all you can do.
What was your life back in high school? Were you the man that people went to when they needed to get weed?
I was pretty much a failure in high school. Yeah, I really didn't. I wasn't really successful until I hit probably 2021, and it took many years for. Back then there was no information. There was a little pamphlet out by Mel Franks and Ed Rosenthal, and it was about this thick, and it really just said, "Grow them like tomatoes." Well, that's a pretty wide range, you know, but. We eventually figured it out, and it was a learning curve for everyone here in Oregon. We all learned together, and that made us strong. And we tried to help each other for the most part. You know, it wasn't open warfare. You know, there was enough customers to go around. We didn't have to worry about getting rid of it.
And when did you start growing for medical patients?
Well, I got busted in '99. 1 week before Christmas in '99, the year before, after Country Fair, 3 guys tried to lure me out of my house in the middle of the night and beat me up with baseball bats. And did it in front of my little boy, my 5 or 6 year old son at the time. And I turned around, and let's just say that they decided they didn't ever want to come back and visit me. And so when they were done, though, to retaliate against me, they turned me in. And pretty soon, I left that property, abandoned ship, took money and everything I had, and went into hiding. And they finally tracked me down after a couple, 3 months, and I got arrested 1 week before Christmas. They stacked charges on me so high that it was $1.5 million. Couldn't get out, and they did it on purpose because I wouldn't talk. Well, they wanted the boss. They had the boss. So I didn't say nothing. I think it took me almost 3 months to get bailed out. Once I got bailed out, like I said, I had Paul Furter. Thank you, Paul, great lawyer. Someone shout out to him. And Jack Bernstein too, by the way. And so anyway, once I got out, I realized, you know, I did not like the way I got treated. They treated me like a criminal, and I had never been in trouble in my life. And so I turned around and I met someone that was friends of Stormy Ray, and I went and interviewed for an opening she had at the Foundation House in Salem at the time for the Grow Master job, and I got it. And that was interesting, but there was no politics to it. I was a part of the wing that was an educational wing. We were not a political wing, and I realized that I wanted to say.
What was Grow Master's job? Sounds like a wonderful job description.
I was probably one of the first guys that started doing grow classes. We used to do them here on this show too, where we'd mix soil, mix organic biological teas. We'd do classes. I started an equipment library where you could come in and trade in old equipment. We had guys that could fix old lights and stuff. We did consultations. We'd come to your home and help set up an indoor or an outdoor, which is, of course, what Oregon Green Cross was. That's what we were really famous for, was going to other people and trying to help them set themselves up so they could start doing with the promise of helping out. people that, you know, if you could afford to put a greenhouse up, we would more than encourage you to give some of that away. Please give some of that away, because there's a lot of people out there in need. And this Stormy Ray was the one person that turned this around for me. And it's the only good thing I'm going to say about her, but the truth is she convinced me this wasn't just for money anymore. This was real. This was saving people's lives, and it changed my life because of that.
Is there a difference when you grow from medical?
If you have that attitude, but of course most people were more into the money, and that's always going to be a part of everything in life, no matter what. Doctors don't go to 8 years of doctorate school to come out and be poor. They come out to make money. And so you have to have a money factor in everything, and that's just the truth, and that's where we're at. But medical, it all comes about what are you willing to do? And me personally, there was many times in my group where the board of directors and I would decide, that's it, we can't take in any more patients. And then all of a sudden, Maria would answer the phone and say, Shawn, talk to this guy. And Rick Drewby, if you're still out there, my first guy, love you, Rick, would get on the phone and just break my heart with a story. And I would say, dude, get to my office, sign my contract, you're in. And my group would just look at me and say, Shawn, what are you doing? And I'd tell them, I'm giving it to him out of my stash. That's it. I know we don't have any more in the freezers anymore. I'll take care of this. And so I just kept giving it away, giving it away, until there was no more, and then time to plant some more.
Full disclosure, I had a small part in Oregon Green Cross. My job was giving it away in Eugene. That was a wonderful job.
Yep.
A lot of bless yous, thank yous for being there.
Yep, there was.
There's a few seconds left. What was your favorite plant strain of all time?
DJ Short Blueberry.
DJ Short Blueberry. That stuff you had the other day, I call it the great demotivator.
Yeah.
When you're in the mood to binge watch, this
Yeah.
stuff will sit in front of a TV for hours.
Banana punch.
Banana punch. Mm.
Yeah, half strawberry banana, half purple punch. I've seen it tested out between 22 to 28%. Very strong.
I remember when we had a choice of Mexican or Killer Green Bud. Well, thanks again, Shawn.
Yes, thank you.
You're always welcome back on the show. We want to thank Baghdadman for being here. Thank our Kevin, our director. Adios. Have a good tomorrow.
God bless all.